I have tried. I have been trying my best to give AEW another chance. As a couple of years ago, we started watching, it's story time with Etep. We started watching AEW full time. We'd watch Dynamite, we'd watch Rampage, we'd watch Ring of Honor, we'd watch the pay-per-views. And it got to be an all-consuming thing when I wasn't even watching the Fed regularly. So it got so bad that we all basically quit outside of Draven, who's on our show with us on Monday nights. He's one of the Wrestling with Horror horsemen here. And I said, you know what? There's some things going on. I want to give it another chance. So decided to give it another chance. We've been watching Dynamite now. You guys know we've been covered on the channel here. We covered the last pay-per-view. Was it Forbidden Door? And I think it was All Out. I don't know. We watched those over on Draven's channel. We watched some of them. Here I'll do a review. But I love MJF. I love everything that the guy does. I think he is a transcendent generational talent. The problem being he's in AEW, which is butchered his world title run with the whole Adam Cole Devil storyline. It was an absolute joke. It was a joke, and it made him look like an idiot. And, Tony Khan will defend it to the death, and, everything's great. We're all great. Meanwhile, you've got 386,000 people watching Collision, 330,000 people watching Rampage, and you can't crack 800,000 on Dynamite. Barely, ever. And you're sitting here going, everything's great. We're all fine. How are you? There's nothing wrong here in AEWville. Meanwhile, you've got monsters on your roster like Wardlow and Powerhouse Hobbs and Big Bill. And who else do we have here that's an ad? Lance Archer. You've got these just Brian Cage. And I know I'm probably forgetting a couple, but these are the ones that matter that are pertinent right now to this discussion. Is AEW has a big man problem. Tony Khan hates big men. Tony Khan wants to see Orange Cassidy completely physically dominate Big Bill in a match where Bill can't get any offense and Orange is wrestling the match with his hands in his pockets. And the next week, Orange Cassidy is literally in peril the entire match against 170-pound. I can't remember who it was. It was one of the masked gentlemen, luchadors. Name's irrelevant because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. You've got Brian Cage going out and jobbing to Darby Allin. Darby Allin couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag. If he weighs 160 pounds, he is fucking lucky. I mean, I went to my buddy runs a promotion, Super Shogun Pro Wrestling. I went there in April, and, I could walk in there and get a spot on the roster. But there's guys in there that absolutely dwarf Darby. I dwarf Darby. I'm 6'3", 225 pounds. I'm not the best. I was 245 when I wrestled, all right? I'm not in the absolute best shape I've ever been in, but for 44, I'm in good shape. And I look at these guys on TV, and it's like, why do you have, I absolutely made a mockery out of a match. Me and my tag partner wrestled with these two little guys. I bumped all over the place like Shawn Michael did for Hogan. Just to make a mockery out of it because we were going over, but the promoter's like, well, I need you to sell for. I'm like, okay, you want me to sell for these two? All right. Whereas the match should have been a fucking squash. It shouldn't have been competitive. In a fight, it wouldn't have been competitive. I'm 245, 6'3". My partner's 6'2", 265 pounds. And we're wrestling against two guys who are 5'4", 115, 120 pounds. And we have to sell for them. That's why I made a mockery out of it. If I'm Brian Cage, if I'm Big Bill, and they tell me, hey, this is the way the match is going to go, and I know what you're going to say, but Etep, professionalism. Well, there's a time where professionalism has to take a backseat to protecting your gimmick, okay? They being Tony Khan, refuse to protect the big men's gimmicks. They refuse to make the big men look like big men. The big men have to be weak, comparatively speaking, to their 160-pound counterparts. Like Orange Cassidy, there's nothing threatening about Orange Cassidy. There's nothing threatening about Darby Allin. You walk up to them on the street, you're not intimidated. Why'd you be intimidated by Darby Allin? My son's almost bigger than him, and he's 9 years old. I mean, come on. This is absolute stupidity. This is Tony Khan projecting his insecurities because he got picked on as a kid by guys bigger than him because he hid in his basement and he played with his toys and he had his E-Fed and he had little to no. He's probably, and I'm not saying this is a knock, but Tony Khan's probably on the spectrum, which explains his awkward social interactions and awkward social behavior. Now, having zero wrestling acumen and having access to guys like Jeff Jarrett backstage and Christopher Daniels, and at one point I believe Bret Hart offered his help in, getting the backstage ship right. Nothing. Doesn't want help. We got this. We're good. And look where you're at now. You're heading into Wembley Stadium for your biggest show of the year, your WrestleMania. You're trying to talk about moments like your WWE, and that's okay. That's all right. Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. But going into Wembley Stadium, one would think that you would want to put your best foot forward. You would want to market this right. You would want, your talent on point. You've got guys, like I said, Brian Cage is a main event talent, and you're doing nothing with him. What is Brian Cage? Is Brian Cage going to be at Wembley? Probably not. Because you've got to showcase your 170 to 200 pound guys. Like they're your main draws, Yeah, MJF isn't a giant, but MJF is a big man. Not physically, he's good size and he looks like a wrestler. Darby Allin doesn't look like a wrestler. Noodle Arm Orange Cassidy doesn't look like a wrestler. I mean, any skinny dude under 160 pounds can have abs. You ain't impressing nobody, bud. Like, the gimmick is garbage. And this whole shitting on the big men thing is, like I said, that's all Tony Khan's projection. That's all it is. And it hurts your product. AEW would benefit if they gleaned the wisdom of Eric Bischoff and developed a cruiserweight division. Showcase your lightweight guys in the frame and in the spotlight that they should be shown in. Don't give me your WrestleMania with two 100-pound guys. It's not. Now I'm not saying this happened at Wembley, but Swerve Strickland is one of your most talented guys on your roster. You got him wrestling Brian Veganson, who I just put Swerve over and go away, please. That's my entire sentiment towards Bryan Danielson. I've never been a fan. I respect everything the guy's done in the ring, his contributions to the business. I'm just not a fan. Simple as that. You're a munchkin. Like, what? I don't care about munchkins. I don't. Munchkins belong in Munchkin Land, which is the cruiserweight division, the light heavyweight division. Not, going over on some 300-pounder like that's feasible. It's not in this business. It's not. The suspension of disbelief, kayfabe, if you will, which is, obviously dead. But, I mean, you can still have some suspension of disbelief. Not, Tessa Blanchard hitting a Canadian destroyer on Brian Cage. Fuck out of here with that shit. That's garbage. Intergender matches are garbage in general, but intergender matches are just as stupid and unbelievable as Darby Allin beating, Big Bill, or a Danny Garcia come out. I can't remember the big guy's name. He's a jobber. He's like 280 pounds, and dancing Danny Garcia just physically dominates him in the entire match. And it's like, Garcia is talented. He's got something there, but you're 170 pounds, bud. Go eat some fucking steak and hit the weights for a few months and come back when you look like a man and not a sophomore in high school. That's what I'm saying. That's the fucking problem with AEW. Well, one of the problems anyway. Now let's take it home with the topic of the last probably, 24 hours or so. Shane McMahon meeting with Tony Khan. We talked about this at length on the live Dynamite review last night. Link is in the description to that. You can check that out. And it's towards the end of the show where we really started kind of pontificating and, hypothesizing and speculating on cool things that we thought could happen, not necessarily reality. And we know this was strictly, speculatory on our part. We have to have fun with it at times and, kind of play fantasy booker with what could be done with Shane. But I know we're wondering how that meeting came to fruition, and I cannot stand Cultaholic Wrestling. I like some of their content, but their presenters are just the most unmasculine, wrestling commentators I have ever seen in my life. But they talked about how that meeting came to fruition. So I'm going to play the clip here real quick, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Yes, he did via Bully Ray on Busted Open Radio. He said, Tony and I were connected through a mutual friend and we had a great meeting. We talked about many things, but mostly about our shared love for the business and the rewards and challenges of working with family. I congratulated him on 5-year anniversary of AEW and look forward to how he evolves the business moving forward.
Who expected Bully Ray to be the conduit of this Shane McMahon, Tony Khan meet?
Shane McMahon is 54 years old. Now, I know Tony Khan has a penchant for signing those older WWE guys like Edge and Christian, but what does Shane intrinsically bring to the table in terms of a performer? If you use him as an authority figure, you could do that. If he wrestled every now and then, maybe once a year for a couple years, that'd be okay as long as he stays in shape and doesn't try any leapfrog spots like he did at WrestleMania. There's also the backstage conflict with him and Vince at the Royal Rumble that was made famous. So there's positives and negatives. Shane's business acumen is what I think AEW would be the best well-served to take advantage of. His connections, the doors he could open for Tony where Tony doesn't have a contact. I think, personally, that's where Shane would be best served if he did do anything with AEW. I'm not saying that's going to happen, and the AEW fans are so delusional at this point. They think anybody who comes in, is going to be riding a white horse and is going to save them and pop the ratings, and they're going to be, up there with the Fed. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen that way. You have to develop your own homegrown talent. And how hypocritical would the AEW fans look if Shane McMahon came in and they're fawning all over him? After all this shit that these weirdos talk about WWE, for them to embrace Shane McMahon's potential arrival is hypocrisy at its finest, at its most apex levels. And I'm here for it, especially with this fan base, as weird and tribalistic as they are. And I know people are going to look at the Wojaks in this video and be like, but you're just ripping on AEW. I watch the product. I want the product to be good. I spend my time, an irreplaceable commodity, watching a product. You think I want it to be bad? I could come out here and I could have just shit all over it. And I kind of did, but I'm doing it from a place that I want to see them improve, because there are men and women there that are amazing talents that are being squandered under the weight of a man-child who is running what is, in all terms, $100 million, almost $1 billion company like me and my son playing with action figures. It doesn't work. It's not feasible. It's not sustainable. And I know what you think, well, Shad Khan's got this, fountain of money pouring in. Well, how long until he gets sick of Tony blowing it on wrestling that's not making any money? And I want to see them get a TV deal, because there needs to be competition in the wrestling business, or else we get what we got from WWE for a long time, where I'd turn it on and then turn it right back off, or I'd only watch highlights online because it was that unbearable. No. The writing is on the wall. AEW is an inferior product that cannot operate under the weight of their own massive stupidity. WWE is established, successful. They are the bar that is set. Like it or not, that's what it is. So Shane McMahon coming in, I don't know if that's going to help anything, but that's it, guys. I went on long enough with this. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think would help AEW. Let me know if you think Shane McMahon is actually coming in. At this point, I don't think, there's a part of me that says he might, but we'll see. It remains to be seen. I don't think if he gets on screen, it'll be, that big of a boon. depending on how it's booked. So leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't yet. It's free. It always will be if you feel so inclined. Join as a channel member, $2.99, $4.99 a month. Request video topics, discussion topics on live streams. Just let me know what you want. Patreon available as well. Patreon.com/wrestlingwithhorror420. There is a whole bunch of content over there. Like I said, if not, just watch the videos, the live streams, the shorts. It's free. It always will be. I'm Etep from Wrestling with Horror. I will catch you guys on the next one.